what was ranching at that point? Were you doing any ranching then?
Yeah.
Were you cattle? I mean,
I did a lot. More than I should have, probably. I mean, I packed salt for the cattle, help brand, all that kind of stuff that you got to get done on a ranch.
Mm-hmm.
And our cow camp, which is still up there, I'd go up there and spend 2 or 3 weeks at a time, moving the cattle from the lower pastures up to the high ground and up through the fall, and then, I'd help round them up. So I wasn't a big part of that operation, but kept me out of trouble for sure. And, it turned into a job with the Forest Service after we got out of the ranching business, where as a volunteer, I'd stay up there and keep an eye on hunters.
Ah.
So, I've had my hand in that since I was a little kid. Yeah.
What is a cow camp?
Oh, cow camp is...
Where cows camp out?
Yeah, they got to have a permit. Sorry.
I'm trying to visualize these cows intense.
You got our reservation? No, but it's... I never had that good of a laugh on that before.
What is a cow camp?
Well, they're all over the place, and that's what they call these cabins, where it's a cowboy or a group of cowboys stay to keep an eye on the cattle in the summer on these Forest Service permits.
Okay.
Are we recording now? Or
Yeah, Forest Service. So that's your association with the Forest Service then?
Yeah, well, that's kind of an interesting story, I guess, because like I said, I used to stay up there like 2 or 3 weeks at a time, and then when all the cattle were sold, I'm like, well, that's it. And I went up there and played a funeral dirge on my accordion for the old cow camp, and I thought that was the end of it. And the Forest Service told me they were going to, I went to them and I said, I'd like to make this part of a historical piece of the forest, or I'd like to get an outfitter's license to use the cabin. They said, no, we're going to tear it down. I said, well, you can't tear it down. I use that to get my work done. And they're like, what kind of work do you do up there? And I said, well, I keep the trails cleared with my chainsaw. And I try to tell people which trails are closed. And the guy said, well, if you use that for a work cabin, be our guest. But he said, come with me. So he took me over. This is Brent Allred, by the way, a great friend of mine. He took me over to the shop, found a uniform for me, and got it all official. So there I was. And, I've been...
So you had to take off the cowboy hat and put on this green uniform?
Yeah.
How'd that feel?
That felt great.
You felt like you were in uniform. I mean, it was...
Yeah, I was. And then I thought, okay, no question. You got to listen to what I'm saying, because I represent the Forest Service. And some people listened, and other people just blew me off. But
were they paying you, or is it because
it's
you got
all
to
volunteer?
Volunteer, and you got the use of their cabins, and you got to hang out there. So you lived there like most of the time then at that point?
Oh no, but I'd still 2 or 3 weeks at a time. Mm-hmm. But then, because they had a lot of trouble with dirt bikes up there, building bandit trails and marooning the trails are there. So I was trying to educate those guys to stay on what was open, and that was a battle which we eventually lost. But the other part of it was the hunting season. And, that's where I did the most good, I think, because when I first started, people were leaving camps that weren't clean. They'd leave trash. They wouldn't bury their latrines. And so I just kept going around every year to these camps. Well, I started knowing these people, a lot of them. And they go, oh, here comes Tony. And those guys would start working for me. Like they'd tell the camp over there, hey, you better clean that up because Tony will be along.
Right, right.
And pretty soon, and I packed, I can't tell you how many panniers full of trash are out of that Colby Park area.
Good thing you were experienced.
Yeah, exactly. But I wasn't getting paid. But anyway, we cleaned that area up. And and I thought, well, I did a lot of good. And it got so good. I remember one time I walked into a camp and a guy looked at me and he says, where's your horse? And I said, how do you know I have a horse? He said, we know who you are. I'd never met the guy, but the stories. So that was really good. I felt good about doing that.
That's awesome.
And I haven't done that for a few years, so I don't know how it's going. But anyway, the cow camp is still there.
Tony, so you come full circle now, and you become this author, writer. All your vision, all your hard work is all in this book in a way. Your life is here.
That's
tell me about that. First, tell me about getting involved the Aspen Times and writing a column for them, and how maybe that spurred into this.
Well, yeah, well, I hadn't thought of it that way. It's a lot of my life in that book. It's an interesting thing, and I need to give credit to Paul Anderson, who just retired being a columnist at the Times after 36 years. But somewhere I had the idea that, maybe I should start writing instead of thinking about it all the time.
Right, right.
And I wrote these little things up, and I thought they were pretty good. And I'd always admired Paul's writing, so I took them to him, and I said, what do you think? And he goes, well, here's some suggestions. And he made some great suggestions, Instead of saying you just had breakfast and went riding your horse, why don't you say what you had for breakfast and say something about what color your horse was, or just flourish it out a little bit, Yeah. And so I started doing that, and anyway, and then along with that, I had this kind of urge to write, so I was writing letters to the paper, and they were a little bit surly sometimes, and somebody, Georgia Taylor was one, and Pat Bingham was another.
Yep.
And they said, you should write a column for the paper. And I thought, well, hell yes, I should. But I had no idea. I mean, what was I going to do? Go ask him for a job? I mean, it just never occurred to me. And one day, Pat Bingham called me, and she said, Alan Harvey at the paper would like to talk to you. And I was like, oh, my God, this is big time. So Alan says, yeah, why don't you write a column for us on Saturday? I said, what about? He said, well, just don't get us sued. And I thought, well, God, if they were that good. Anyway, so that's when I started writing the column. Yeah, I had no idea what the hell I was doing, but...
So how many have you written so far?
I have no idea, but,
I mean, far beyond what this book is now.
Oh, a lot more than that, yeah. There's 150 in that book, I think.
Okay.
Or somewhere around that. And, I have another one rolling around. I go, well, I have all these columns. Let's do another book. And so I'd like to do that, put another collection together like that. And then I'd also like to write a memoir. Because, as you notice, those columns are short. They're like 800 words or less.
Well, that's why I like them myself.
They're good.
Yeah.
But, you have to leave a lot out. And so I'm thinking... maybe a memoir would be good. I mean, still.
Can we do a video memoir at the same time?
We could, sure.
We could sit here for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, people think it's interesting, like, what's growing up on a ranch like?
Yeah.
And so I guess I like to try to say what it's like. And what, there's something about this whole area, though. I mean, what makes people come here and they never leave? And I've had it. I mean, hell, I'll never leave. I think about it sometimes, but I go, no. And it's just such a great area that I guess, so if I can add to the story a little bit, like what my life was about, and the thing that I like what I do is I write about the ranching and I write about the skiing.
Right.
And it kind of ties the two together.
Well, in between there's life.